New Unrivaled basketball league just learned the hard way that their opening weekend ratings are as impressive as an Angel Reese layup. Remember when Reese said that the reason we watch women's basketball isn't just because of one person, it's because of me too? And I want you all to realize that. Yes, it is unrivaled, but it's also unwatched. Let's be honest, we can sugarcoat it all you want, but if you don't have Caitlin Clark playing women's basketball, or if you're not in the NCAA tournament playing women's basketball, you have nothing. As we break down the numbers, examine the fan reactions, and examine what this means for the new 3-on-3 league, whose biggest draw was allegedly Reese. Her big talk just got dunked on by reality talk about a massive train wreck. Are you ready? Let's go. They released the first television numbers that TNT did, and they're boasting about them because, well, they're the best they've ever been because they've only been once. It sounds good, but it doesn't really mean a whole lot. Let's be honest, though, and look at the new women's basketball professional 3-on-3 league. Angel Reese had a lot to say about her star power. She was practically shouting from the rooftops about how she was the face of women's basketball, telling anyone who would listen that she was the reason fans were tuning in. It's hilarious because, from what I understand, she keeps telling us that Angel Reese is the reason people watch women's basketball. Yes, those were the days when Reese was riding high on her newfound fame and basking in the spotlight after the stunt she pulled during LSU's championship game against Iowa, telling us that it's not just Caitlin Clark who is part of this brigade of BA women's basketball players that are attracting all these new viewers to the WNBA. And I believe that these ratings prove the biggest point. However, you know, they say about pride coming before a fall, and Reese just took a tumble, and it's a doozy. And the unmatched ratings are in, and let's just say that they're not exactly living up to the hype. Remember all that big talk about how people watch for Angel Reese? Well, now that she can put her money where her mouth is because she's the league's alleged star, but it turns out that she's not a draw. Pretty one for Reese. This is more statistical evidence that shows no one is watching to see Angel Reese. Now, I'm not saying that Reese is the only reason for these ratings. That wouldn't be fair. But when you talk about a big game, you better be prepared to back it up. Right now, those numbers are looking about as flat as a deflated basketball. We knew that TNT would have to do something to try to turn this around, but I don't think there's any way to do that because the new women's basketball league, which we said would be dead on arrival without Caitlin Clark playing in it, actually did not. Just how bad are we talking? Well, get ready because it's not pretty. The first 2 days of Unrivaled games drew an average of about 300,000 viewers. TNT attempted to spin this as the most watched women's basketball games in the network's history. But let's face it, that's not saying much, especially with all the novelty and marketing hype surrounding the new league. TPR claims that the 2 games on Friday night, the debut games for the new league AR, averaged 312,000 viewers. Now, I have to ask you, 312,000 viewers? Let's go to 300,011 viewers because there are presumably 1,000 family members watching. What are you doing to put it in perspective? These numbers are comparable to regular WNBA games without Caitlin Clark. And as we all know, when Clark takes the court, viewership easily reaches 1 million. Therefore, comparing the Unrivaled debut to the Caitlin Clark effect is like comparing a backyard pickup game to the NBA Finals. The funniest thing about these ratings is that although front office sports tried to spin it too, the ratings are bad. But wait, it gets worse. I know, I didn't think it could either, but here we are after that initial high of 300,000 viewers. Fell off a cliff. We're talking about less than 200,000 viewers for the first game and a little over 1,000 for the second game. In fact, the viewership actually decreased between the first and second games from last Friday's Unrivaled debut. Why is that? Angel Reese played in the second game and they lost viewers from the first game. And you have to wonder what's going through Angel Reese's mind right now. Is she still convinced that she's the draw she thought she was? These numbers tell a different and not a flattering story. was playing. I saw some highlights or lowlights of it, and I have to tell you that it's terrible. If you thought the ratings weren't bad, then hold on tight, because what's happening on the court is even worse. Unrivaled isn't just having trouble drawing in viewers, they're having trouble putting the ball in the hoop, and we're talking about wide open layups that clank off the rim like it's a game of hot potato. Can you imagine missed layups from last night? Well, what is actually happening here? Oh my God, I'm going to drive to the basket and then I'm going to mess it up. No layups. Whatever that is, we don't know. When Unrivaled was first announced, fans were promised a showcase of elite talent, the best of the best, and a chance to watch top-tier athletes compete at the highest level. Well, let's just say that it's not exactly highlight reel material. The first weekend of Unrivaled was a basketball purist's nightmare, with players who were supposed to be professionals suddenly looking like they'd forgotten how to play, wide open shots that sailed over the backboard, fast breaks that ended with fumbled passes, and let's not even talk about the layups that ended up being a blowout that was kind of unwatchable. I'm all over this when I'm sharing my first thoughts, but we need to be able to be more honest with our constructive criticism of women's basketball. Another thing I noticed was that even with the commentary sideline interviews with the pregame show, postgame show, it felt like all of those were set up as a marketing tool for the play on the court. And it was just overwhelming praise, but don't take it at face value. Basketball analysts and former players have been criticized the league's coverage for being far too positive, saying that we need to be able to be more honest with our constructive criticism of women's basketball. Basketball translation, this is bad, and we need to be able to say that all of the things they did are amazing, and that is all great things to point out, but we don't have to constantly praise and not call out certain things like regular play-by-play commentary in studio shows would do. For example, if you turn on an NBA game and one of the teams is losing by 30, you will have some things to say about it in that studio show to constructively criticize what's happening. I think that was a little bit of a turnoff with some of the commentary. And if you think that's harsh, just wait until you hear what happened on Monday's second game between the Laces Basketball Club featuring Alyssa. There hasn't been much room for criticism in women's basketball media in general. And if you do, it's like, oh, you're hating, just turn it off, this and that. But the real kicker was when Thomas and fan favorite Kate Martin faced the Miss Basketball Club, which featured WNBA champion Brianna Stewart and WNBA Most Improved player Jai Carrington. The final score was 63-43, and that's not a typo. The Mist only managed to score 43 points in a whole professional basketball game at one point. A team was stuck at 4 points for what seemed like an eternity. Really brings home how bad things are. It comes from none other than Draymond Green, who isn't exactly known for keeping his opinions to himself, but even by his standards, this was brutal. He said, I watched maybe 2 seconds of it, I got upset, and I turned the TV off. Let that sink in. A 4-time NBA champion, a man who lives and breathes basketball, couldn't handle more than 2 seconds of Unrivaled. It's like Gordon Ramsay entering a kitchen, taking one sniff and leaving right away. It's that bad. TNT's feet on getting these ratings out. I mean, the marketing spin they're trying to put on this is hilarious. Women's professional 3-on-1 basketball league, and they're not very good. Of course, TNT tried to make the numbers look strong, but the truth is that without Caitlin Clark, there wouldn't have been any big audiences. The one player who truly makes a difference is Caitlin Clark. So let's talk about the Caitlin Clark-sized hole in women's basketball right now. While Unrivaled is having trouble keeping viewers awake, Caitlin Clark is busy burning up the basketball world. We're not just talking about a slight increase in interest here. We're talking about a seismic shift in how people view women's basketball. The Clark effect resulted in WNBA games without Clark attracting an average of 400,000 viewers. In contrast, the WNBA attracted millions of viewers for his championship series without Caitlin Clark, which was still shamefully low when compared to games featuring Caitlin Clark. The most recent Indiana Fever playoff game attracted 2 viewers. 64 million viewers. Let's break it down. Caitlin Clark's games during the WNBA playoffs drew some very impressive numbers. We're talking about nearly 3 million viewers for a single playoff game. That's not just good, though. It's not just about TV. Ratings, Caitlin Clark is a one-woman economic powerhouse. Here's the thing. She was in charge of 26% of the WNBA's revenue, which means that, if you think about it for a moment, one player is driving over a quarter of the league's business. And the attendance will be over 200,000 more than the next highest total in league history. This isn't just hype or media buzz, my friend. We're talking real money and real impact, while Unrivaled is scuttering at the bottom of the ratings barrel. According to Kohler, Clark should be among the highest paid athletes in the league because her influence extends far beyond what occurs on the court, and she is transforming the entire economic landscape of women's basketball. This only serves to highlight the fact that Caitlin Clark is the most popular player in women's basketball and that many fans would not watch if she didn't. To put this into perspective, Unrivaled is having trouble attracting viewers, and that's with all the hype and marketing for a brand new league. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark is casually attracting millions of viewers as if it were no big deal. Usually, a new league viewership first settles in, and then it settles in. This is the stark reality that Unrivaled is facing. They're not just competing against other leagues or other forms of entertainment. They're competing against the Caitlin Clark effect, and right now it's not even close. Caitlin Clark did something very smart. Instead of always being the most popular in the room, the smartest in the room, like if I walk into any room and I'm the most handsome and the smartest, I got to get out of that room. I really missed Angel Reese on my phone playing what? That room isn't doing anything for me. So how does this compare to the WNBA? Well, it's obvious that the WNBA has something that Unrivaled doesn't, star power that actually translates into viewership and revenue, while Unrivaled is attempting to create interest. The WNBA has a real phenomenon on its hands. Remember all that hype surrounding the Unrivaled big debut? Well, the numbers are in, and they're painting a picture that's far from pretty. Let's examine these ratings and see how badly this so-called revolutionary league is struggling. If I were the Unrivaled league, I would go back to Caitlin Clark and ask her what she needs and then give it to her. But Caitlin Clark seems beyond that, and that increases her popularity. At first glance, it didn't appear that bad. On average, Unrivaled drew in about 300,000 viewers for their first weekend. However, as they say, the proof is in the pudding, and as soon as the initial excitement subsided, so did the viewership.